In the serene woods of Jetavana, Buddha sat beneath a Bodhi tree, exuding tranquility like an unmoving mountain. The wind carried the gentle rustling of leaves, blending harmoniously with the soft chirping of birds nearby. I bowed deeply, my mind troubled with thoughts of missed moments and days lost in relentless pursuit of perfection. Buddha, I began hesitantly, my voice trembling. I am consumed by the feeling of lacking enough time to accomplish everything I desire. Master, he began, his voice trembling with restrained emotion. Today a villager insulted me with cruel and venomous words. The Buddha opened his eyes, which held the depth of oceans and the clarity of the unclouded sky. I was struck by the profundity of his words. Yet the burden inside my chest remained. Stubborn like a clenched fist, I explained. Master, my responsibilities are endless. I chase them each day as if they are running away from me. I tried to defend myself, the monk admitted, but the words only intensified, and I left feeling shaken and unsettled. The Buddha nodded, inviting the monk to sit beside him, signaling the beginning of a teaching born from deep understanding. Ananda, he addressed him by name. Imagine a traveler who carries a heavy sack filled with stones on his journey. The monk listened intently, his focus narrowing as he began to absorb the metaphor Buddha was about to unfold. I reflected on his words, my heart aching with the truth they revealed, their resonance cutting through layers of denial. But how do I begin to live? I asked earnestly, without feeling crushed by the demands of the world around me? The Buddha placed his hand gently on the ground, his fingers grazing the earth's surface as he drew a small circle. Would it not be folly to accept such a burden when one's shoulders already ache from the weight they carry? Number. Master, the monk answered, his voice laced with growing curiosity. A traveler would only suffer more from accepting it. Precisely, Buddha affirmed, his serene smile lighting the monk's troubled heart like the first rays of dawn. Insults, like heavy sacks, are burdens offered by others. In living, Buddha spoke softly, you must learn to honor the moments as they are, instead of rushing to reshape them. I questioned, but, Master, won't the world see me as lazy or uncaring if I stop striving to do everything perfectly? Buddha's gentle laughter danced like a melody, filling the air with a sound that somehow held the weight of compassion. Master, do you mean the insults have no power over me if I choose not to engage with them? Ananda asked. Yes, Buddha said, his voice resonating like a soft gong that echoes far beyond its strike. Power comes from your reaction. He picked up a small pebble, showing it to Ananda, holding it lightly as though it carried immense symbolic weight. This pebble is an insult, Buddha continued, placing it gently onto the ground. Without picking it up, does it burden me? Number. Master, Ananda replied, understanding blossoming in his expression like a lotus opening its petals at sunrise. Your mind, Buddha explained, is like fertile soil, where seeds of peace or conflict are sown. Depending on your choices. He paused, letting the stillness settle in the circle as the disciples absorbed each word. Heavy with ancient truth, anger is the traveler's sack filled with stones, Buddha resumed. Each insult we carry adds weight, draining our inner peace. A soft breeze swept through the gathering, seeming to carry away the monk's former turmoil, leaving a deeper sense of calm. But Master, Ananda pressed, how does one resist the instinct to react when the flames of anger arise so quickly within? Buddha's expression remained serene, like a pond undisturbed by the ripples of wind, his patience an unshakable virtue. Ananda, he said, do you know the power of a pause? The space between stimulus and response that shapes our destiny? The monk shook his head slightly, eager to understand the essence of this mysterious space Buddha spoke about with reverence. In the moment before reaction, a pause is like a vast clearing, offering freedom from the chains of impulsive anger. His words settled over the disciples like morning dew on petals, refreshing their minds and awakening hidden seeds of wisdom. Master, how can I create this pause when my emotions surge like waves in a storm-tossed sea? Ananda asked. Through mindfulness, Buddha replied. The practice of observing your thoughts as though they were clouds passing across an open sky. Observe the rising anger as a cloud, neither rejecting it nor clinging to it, and let it drift without attaching meaning. The disciples, including Ananda, sat in silent awe as the brilliance of this teaching illuminated the recesses of their hearts. A small bird landed nearby, chirping softly, as though nature itself celebrated the sacred harmony Buddha's wisdom brought to Jetavana. You see, Ananda, Buddha concluded, when you choose stillness over reaction, you preserve the sanctuary of peace within your soul. The young monk bowed his head deeply, the shadow of frustration replaced by the warm glow of newfound understanding. My gratitude overflows. Master, Ananda said, his voice steady now. Your teaching is the guiding light I needed this day. Buddha placed a hand on his shoulder, a simple gesture that carried the weight of infinite compassion and limitless kindness. May this light guide you not just today, Buddha said, but every time life tests your patience with storms of words. Ananda rose, his heart lighter, the burden of insults left behind like fallen leaves swept away by the gentle wind. The other disciples, too, felt enriched, as though each had received a jewel of wisdom that would adorn their lives forever. Above them, the leaves of the Bodhi tree shimmered, whispering secrets only the wise could hear and only the still could understand. The sun began to set, casting golden light upon the serene woods, as though blessing the day's profound unfolding of truth. Another day, the Buddha and his disciples walked through a narrow street in a village. The sun casting warm light, villagers paused to bow, offering humble greetings, their voices blending with the marketplace's vibrant sounds and fragrant aromas of spices. Buddha answered, his tone unwavering yet compassionate. Doubt is the shadow cast by knowledge-seeking light, Buddha said. Another day, another gathering under the sunlit skies. The Buddha sat surrounded by disciples seeking guidance on their troubles. A farmer joined the assembly, his face etched with the trials of a life bound by the rhythms of the earth. I am burdened by your teachings, the man said, which distract people from their responsibilities to family and village. The disciples watched intently, their hearts heavy with concern, unsure of how the Buddha would address this intense accusation. Sundari smiled softly, her gaze turning inward toward her newfound courage. Each day offers a new opportunity to awaken. Buddha reminded them, his presence eternal as the rhythmic tides of the ocean. Emptiness carries the promise of new life. As this field, now fallow, gathers strength for the planting season. The farmer frowned, struggling to reconcile the words with the pressing weight of his labor and the immediate needs of survival. Not all who drink are made wiser. The Buddha smiled gently, as if acknowledging a shared truth, and spoke again with the clarity of sunlight piercing morning mist. Imagine, my friend, Buddha said, a farmer who scatters seeds across a field, knowing not all will take root and grow. The man nodded slightly, intrigued despite himself, his body language softening, and his defenses gradually lowering before Buddha's reasoned calm. The seeds that find fertile soil thrive, while others land on rocks or are carried away by winds, the Buddha continued. Similarly, my teachings are scattered, received by those ready, ignored by those unprepared, harming none, yet nourishing those receptive. Farmer, the Buddha said, his voice steady and warm like the sun. The bird does not toil without pause nor suffer hunger. The farmer looked toward the skies, his eyes searching for the truth hidden in the Master's wisdom. Imagine, Buddha said to his disciple, a merchant brings fine goods to market, yet finds some buyers critical and unkind in response. Should the merchant abandon his goods? Buddha asked, because a few cannot see their value, or continue offering them in faith? The disciple bowed his head. Understanding dawned within him, like sunlight breaking through clouds obscuring wisdom's persistent glow. A child approached the group, carrying a bowl of water. Offering it humbly to the Buddha as a gesture of goodwill, the Buddha accepted the bowl, holding it gently, and turned once more to the man whose anger had started the encounter. Water, Buddha said, when poured into a still bowl, reflects the sky, yet when disturbed, shows only ripples and distortion. The anger you carry, Buddha continued, is like ripples on water, clouding clarity, distorting truth, and preventing peace's serene reflection. The man watched as the Buddha placed the bowl on the ground, untouched, the water within settling into stillness again. Master, the man finally said, his voice subdued, how can one achieve this stillness when anger rises quicker than thought can intervene? The Buddha smiled, his compassion and unspoken reassurance, and gestured toward a nearby tree standing tall with deep, anchoring roots. A tree grows strong, the Buddha said, because its roots reach deep into the earth, drawing nourishment and stability from unseen strength. Similarly, Buddha explained, mindfulness and understanding are roots that anchor the soul, preventing it from swaying under emotional storms. The man stepped closer. His once hostile demeanor transformed into one of seeking, the heat of his anger replaced with inquiry. How does one grow such roots? Master? The man asked. Balance your actions with moments of pause, for both are essential in weaving the tapestry of life, the Buddha concluded. The sun began to set, casting long shadows over the meadow, a visual metaphor for the day's lessons of light and dark. The farmer left the gathering with a heart unburdened, his steps carrying him forward with newfound wisdom to guide his journey. The Buddha remained seated under the sky, his presence a beacon of peace and understanding to all who sought. Villagers murmured among themselves, some nodding with acceptance, others reflecting silently, the teachings falling like seeds on varying soils. You see, my friend, Buddha concluded, anger thrives on reaction, but fades in the presence of observation and compassionate understanding. The man knelt, bowing his head low, an act of humility that spoke louder than the loudest words he had uttered before. Master, the man said, I see now that my anger has blinded me, and I seek your guidance to find stillness. A young monk approached the Buddha, his brow furrowed and his spirit restless amidst thoughts of tasks awaiting tomorrow. Master, the monk spoke, his voice trembling with unease. Though I strive for mindfulness, my thoughts race toward the burdens of future days. The Buddha observed the monk with profound calm, his presence radiating compassion that embraced the fragility of the human condition. Dear monk, the Buddha began, his words deliberate and soft. Do you see the setting sun on the horizon before us? The monk turned his gaze toward the golden hues painting the sky, a fleeting display of nature's beauty and impermanence. Buddha continued walking, his steps neither hurried nor halting, his presence leaving behind a quiet ripple of change in the village. The sun, now lower in the sky, cast long shadows that danced like gentle reminders of the transient nature of all things. No, Master, the monk replied, his voice barely above a whisper. The sun shines its last rays without yearning, and so must we, the Buddha spoke, his gaze steady, shine in the present moment, unburdened by the weight of tomorrow's tasks. In the distance, the sound of a temple bell resonated, a gentle signal calling all to reflection and the pursuit of stillness. Another day. The Buddha sat by a lotus pond, its surface shimmering like a mirror under the moonlit night. Disciples gathered around him, the cool air carrying the fragrance of blooming flowers and the faint chirping of crickets. The Buddha held a small stone in his hand, turning it over thoughtfully, the action drawing the disciple's curious attention. "Master," a disciple began, breaking the silence, "why do our minds feel so restless, unable to find lasting peace?" The Buddha looked at the disciple, his serene gaze as calming as the still waters of the pond behind him. "Restlessness," Buddha said, "is the ripple that disturbs the clarity of our minds, preventing us from seeing the truth within." He gently placed the stone on the ground, its presence unnoticed by the pond, which continued to reflect the stars. "What causes these ripples, Master?" the disciple asked, his voice carrying the weight of yearning for understanding and inner stillness. "The ripples arise from our reactions," Buddha replied, "like a stone tossed into still water, each reaction creating endless disturbances." Another disciple leaned forward, his expression earnest. "But Master, how can we prevent these stones from being thrown into our minds?" The Buddha smiled gently, his hands resting lightly on his knees, as though grounding himself in the wisdom of his words. "Imagine, my friends," Buddha said, "a man who stands by a pond, carrying a basket of stones meant for the water." The disciples listened intently, their thoughts beginning to shape the metaphor into something more significant than mere words or imagery. "Each stone," Buddha continued, "represents a thought, an emotion, or an impulse, waiting to be thrown into the still pond." He paused, allowing the image to settle in their minds like a seed falling gently into fertile soil, ready to grow. "Now, consider this," Buddha said. "What happens if the man chooses to leave the stones in his basket untouched and still?" The disciples exchanged glances, contemplating the question. Before one replied, "The pond remains undisturbed, its surface clear and calm." "Yes," Buddha affirmed, "and in that stillness, the pond reflects the heavens, its clarity revealing the profound truths within." One disciple, younger and less experienced, asked hesitantly, "Master, what gives the man the strength to resist throwing the stones?" Buddha looked at him, his eyes kind and understanding, as though recognizing the courage it took to ask such a question. "The strength," Buddha said, "comes from mindfulness, the awareness of each impulse, and the choice to observe rather than act." He reached for a nearby lotus flower, holding it delicately between his fingers, its petals unblemished and pure in form. "The lotus," Buddha said, "grows in muddy waters but rises above them, untouched by the mud, blooming in perfect purity." "Our minds," he continued, "can also rise above the muddy impulses, untouched by reactions, blooming in the clarity of mindfulness." As night descended, the sparrows' chirps turned into soft coos, a lullaby for the disciples' weary souls. They sat in stillness, their breaths syncing with the sparrows' rhythm, their hearts embodying Buddha's teachings. "When the stone has been thrown," Buddha said, "observe the ripples without resistance or attachment, and they will eventually subside. Do not add more stones," Buddha added, "for each new reaction fuels the ripples, prolonging their disturbance and clouding the clarity." The disciples sat in thoughtful silence, their hearts absorbing the lesson like the pond's depths receiving the light of the moon. A soft breeze rustled the nearby reeds, their gentle swaying mirroring the calming effect Buddha's words had on the disciples' minds. "Master," one disciple said, "how can we remember these teachings in the moments when the stones are tossed without warning?" The Buddha turned his gaze to the night sky, the vast expanse of stars twinkling like countless lanterns illuminating the infinite. "Look to the stars," Buddha said. "Their light is constant, even when clouds obscure them, just as mindfulness resides within you." Through practice, Buddha continued, you can hold this light steady, guiding you through the storms of life and ripples of thought. the disciples felt a profound sense of connection to the stars above, their hearts uplifted by the reminder of their inner light. One disciple bowed deeply, his voice filled with gratitude. "Master, your teachings are like the moonlight, illuminating paths hidden in darkness." Buddha's smile carried wisdom, his voice a balm for Ananda's uncertainties. "Clarity comes through patience, Ananda, and through repeated practice," Buddha explained. Similarly, he continued, "the teachings are offered freely, their benefit depending on the readiness of the hearts that receive them." The disciples bowed as one, their actions a silent expression of reverence for the wisdom that flowed from the Buddha's heart. The pond, reflecting the moon and stars, seemed to mirror the disciples' own growing understanding, its surface calm and undisturbed. As the night deepened, the teachings settled within the disciples like seeds planted in fertile ground. Awaiting the dawn to grow, the Buddha rose, his movements fluid and unhurried, his presence a living embodiment of the stillness he had just described. The disciples followed him in silence, their steps lighter, their minds quieter, as they carried the teachings into the still night. Above, the moon cast its gentle light over the path ahead, as though guiding them towards the truths yet to unfold. Thank you for watching. Buddha's teachings are always with you. Subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next video.